They say the chessboard doesn't care who you are. Black or white, rich or poor, it'll treat you the same. Just 64 squares and a truth as old as time. If you can see the move before they do, it don't matter what your last name is. I learned that the hard way, sitting on the floor of a fancy school library, watching the son of a billionaire flip through my notebook like it was his property. My name's Micah Sullivan, and I'm not what you'd call a regular student at Eastbridge Preparatory. My dad, Luther, was the janitor there for over 15 years. Folks at the school called him Mr. Sullivan, but rarely looked him in the eye. He pushed his cart down those polished marble halls like a ghost in work boots. I used to wait for him in the library after my own public school let out, tucked away behind the reference section in a spot nobody but the books cared about. I wasn't supposed to be there, technically. That part of the library was reserved for Eastbridge students, and I wasn't one of them. But nobody noticed a quiet kid with a spiral notebook and a dog-eared chess book. Not until Preston Langley did. Preston was the kind of boy who inherited everything but humility. Son of Garrett Langley, tech mogul, major donor, and self-proclaimed visionary. Preston had his father's smile and none of his restraint. He found me sitting cross-legged one afternoon, working through a complicated endgame from Fischer's 1972 match. Snatched my notebook and laughed. "What's this? You think you're a prodigy or something?" I didn't answer, just looked at him and asked for it back. That made him grin wider. He tossed it onto the floor like it was trash and walked off with his little entourage chuckling behind him. I picked up my notebook, smoothed the pages, and kept working. See, I wasn't chasing attention. I just loved the game. My mom used to say my brain didn't rest unless it had a puzzle to chew on, and chess was the only thing big enough to keep it busy. She taught me before cancer took her. My dad kept it alive for me after that. Every night after work, we'd sit at our chipped kitchen table, him with his thermos of reheated coffee, me with a board missing a pawn and a knight. He'd lose gracefully and laugh every time. "You got your mother's eyes," he'd say, "and her checkmates, too." But the day Preston tossed my notebook, something shifted. I went home angry, not at him, but at the world that made him believe he had the right. And then came the announcement. Garrett Langley was hosting Eastbridge's annual charity gala. Black tie, silver trays, a string quartet in the background, the whole deal. And as a surprise, he announced a chess exhibition. We thought it might be fun to pit our brightest young talent against a local enthusiast, he said into the mic, eyes twinkling. "Micah Sullivan, would you do us the honor?" The room went still. Some laughed. Preston smirked. I just sat there stunned. My dad squeezed my shoulder, but I could feel the tension in his fingers. Later that night, he said, "Son, you don't have to do this. They're setting you up." "I know," I said, "but I'm tired of hiding my light." He looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "Then you better be ready." And so it began. For the next 2 weeks, I studied like a madman. Not just theory, but psychology. I replayed Langley's college matches, watched how he attacked, how he defended. I memorized patterns, rehearsed traps. But most of all, I trained with someone nobody knew about. His name was Mr. Volkov, a quiet, older man who worked night maintenance. Russian accent so thick you could cut it with a spoon. One night, I found him playing speed chess against himself in the boiler room. "You play?" he asked without looking up. "Trying to," I said. He smirked, then stopped trying. "Sit." What followed was the most intense learning I'd ever experienced. Volkov didn't teach like a coach. He taught like a soldier. Tactics, timing, patience. Invisible chess, he called it. Make them think you are weak, then strike like storm. The night of the gala, I wore my dad's old suit. Too big in the shoulders, sleeves rolled once. Miss Angela, the librarian, had hemmed it for me and slipped a note in the pocket. "Checkmate the world, Micah." When I walked into that ballroom, I felt like I was stepping into an arena. Crystal chandeliers, gold-plated cutlery, laughter floating like bubbles. Preston stood by the board with his phone already recording. His father stood at the other side, beaming, sipping from a flute. "Black or white?" he asked. Black, I said. That surprised him. Most kids want the first move. But I didn't need it. We shook hands. The room fell quiet. Langley opened with e4. Standard. I responded with c5. Sicilian defense. He smiled like a man who thought he was humoring me. But by move 12, that smile had started to slip. By move 20, I sacrificed my queen. Gasps. Someone dropped their glass. By move 24, it was clear he'd fallen for a trap. By move 29, checkmate. Silence. Then a single clap. Miss Angela. Then another. Mr. Volkov had appeared at the back of the room. Then the whole crowd. Langley stood frozen. His face was flushed red. I could see it. Not just embarrassment. Fear. He leaned in close and said, "This isn't over." He wasn't wrong. The next morning, the video hit 10 million views. Headlines exploded. Janitor's son humiliates tech billionaire. Interviews rolled in. Offers. Scholarships. Then the pushback. Miss Angela was placed on leave. Violation of access policy, they said. Volkov vanished. No warning. Just gone. Then came the letter. I was under investigation. For what? For being too good. They called it a competitive integrity review. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Langley launched a foundation called Chess for All, framing my match as some grand inspiration that he had cultivated. He wanted to own the story, control the narrative. My dad asked, "You want to play their game? Or change it?" I said, "We change it." We launched a campaign, Chess Without Strings, told our truth without naming names. Just honesty, integrity. The people responded. They funded my trip to the Berlin Youth Invitational. I walked in wearing that same old suit. Nobody sponsored me. No logos. Just me. I played 7 rounds. Beat national champions. Drew against prodigies. In the finals, I faced a boy from China. Brilliant. Precise. Cold. The game went 90 moves. I won. Barely. But I won. Back home, Eastbridge tried to claim me again. Parade. Photo ops. The same people who ignored my dad now shook his hand. We declined most of it. Instead, we opened the Sullivan Chess Initiative. A storefront on our block turned into a classroom. No fees. Just passion. One night, a boy walked in. Wore a backpack twice his size. Clutched a rook carved from a bottle cap. "You play?" I asked. He nodded. "Then let's begin. Because the board doesn't care who you are. But I do. And I know what it means to be underestimated. So, let me ask you this: what would our world look like if we stopped asking where talent comes from and started asking who we're ignoring? If this story stirred something in you, if it made you think of someone who deserves a chance, share it. Drop a comment. Start a conversation. Because somewhere out there, another Micah is sitting in a quiet corner with a spiral notebook, waiting for someone to see the light in them before the world tries to snuff it out. And sometimes, all it takes is one move.